All right. Thank you all for joining the International Association of Woodcarvers meeting today. Today is July the 11th, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And today we have a special guest with us from Oregon State, Mrs. Dani Botlz. She's going to talk to us a little bit about monetizing wood carving. She has a website called Honeysuckle and Mud. I think that's her business also. She runs a blog, and she also has a Airbnb in Montana. So we're interested in hearing what Dani has to tell us today about spoon carving and monetizing your business. So Dani, if you will unmute, then we'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Awesome. Can you hear me?
We can.
Hi, everybody. I'm so happy to be here. My name's Dani Botlz, and yeah, like Blake said, I am originally from Oregon and now split my time between Oregon and Montana. And I wanted to just kind of give you a little bit of my background. I've actually only been carving spoons for about 3.5 years, and it started kind of at like a real rock bottom for me. I had just closed my yoga studio, and I was like, what am I gonna do now? And was always really drawn to wooden spoons. And so I started looking on YouTube, found some amazing spoon carvers on there, and basically through YouTube and books taught myself how to carve spoons, and just fell in love with the craft, fell in love with the history of it all, and just kind of started geeking out over it. And long story short, about a couple of months into it, I had 30, 40 spoons, a pile of them. And I'm like, well, since I'm not doing anything else, maybe I can monetize this. Like maybe I can start to make some money off of this. It's like the entrepreneur in me was trying to figure out the next step. So basically started selling some of my spoons on Etsy and didn't really have any idea of what the business would evolve into. So after selling some spoons on Etsy, I began selling them through some various wholesale accounts. I had some consignments and just really began following the breadcrumbs of what then would become Honeysuckle and Mud, my lifestyle company that is now really focused on supporting creatives. And we teach people how to carve spoons now. We do our workshops. We do workshops almost twice a month at locations, various locations, sometimes outside, but mostly at different businesses who can then market the classes for us. So yeah, I just started selling my work in various places. We started doing markets. I got to the point where I needed some help keeping up with orders. So I begged my husband to learn how to carve spoons. I was like, please, my hands are breaking. And so I brought my husband on, and we pretty quickly realized that making a living solely off of spoons wasn't going to work for us, because we were kind of that limiting factor there. And if any of you carve spoons, I know most of you carve something, it takes a lot of time. And to make a living off spoons, I would have had to be selling my spoons for about $100 a pop. And I don't know if that customer exists out there. So anyway, I moved from selling just my spoons and home goods. We started doing some cutting boards, and then I get all of my tools from FlexCut. I'm sure some of you use FlexCut tools as well. And I reached out to them to see if they would be willing to donate 10 sets of a carving knife and a palm gouge, because I wanted to begin my workshops, but I didn't have the capital up front to just pay for the tools. And they graciously donated my first round of tools, and we started working for them. So now we are retailers for FlexCut tools, which has been massively abundant for our business. I know many of you are wanting to learn how to make some money off of your work, and I think you absolutely should lean into that and start finding some portals online like Etsy or your website, Shopify. There's a million things online which after our call, I'd be happy to send you some resources, some different online spots for selling your work. But what I think is the most important takeaway when it comes to monetizing your work is just diversifying your income. So, you know, it's what started with the spoon, then turned into spoons and spoon carving kits. So we sell like a jig, we sell the knife and the gouge, and now we make the bulk of our income from spoons off of spoon blanks. We just end up cutting the blanks out and selling those online. And it's pretty neat because, like you guys know, we're kind of in this world of people getting back to just wanting to make things themselves again. And I've just found that to be so true with our company. And one thing that I wanted to tell you guys that's also been really wonderful for our business is once the pandemic hit, we're like, oh my gosh, like no more workshops, that's off the table. Our rentals completely shut down. But because we had this other portal of income selling our spoon carving kits and people were stuck at home during this pandemic our business is completely blown up because people are stuck at home and they want to do something. So we ended up creating, basically putting our in-person workshop onto a PDF that we hired a designer to create just the step-by-step procedure on how to carve a wooden spoon from blank to finish. And yeah, that's just been really, really cool. So I'm sharing just my story so you can kind of pluck what you want from it and leave the rest. But just really following the breadcrumbs in I love carving spoons. Maybe I can make some money off the tools. Maybe I could teach some people how to carve spoons. And it's just been very, very cool. And it's given us just many portals for income. One thing that I've noticed too with Honeysuckle and Mud is our customers that buy our finished products and the unfinished products, the actual tools and everything, they're very interested in hearing about our story. So how the business was founded, what is the backstory to it? So if you're starting to step into that world of wanting to monetize, like maybe you're starting on Instagram and you're just sharing beautiful photos of your work, really, like maybe it's sharing a picture of one of your little figurines and talking about what you were thinking about when you carved it. Like people eat that shit up. People want to know the story. They want to know how you feel when you're making it. You know, it kind of gives this beautiful piece of art even more substance. So that's what I've really found to be true. And because the business that we have, Honeysuckle and Mud, is kind of like this umbrella business for all the things we love. We have a podcast, which is not focused solely on woodwork, but we sponsor the podcast. So I have like a little ad spot on the podcast. It's like, and now we're sponsored by Honeysuckle and Mud, which then weaves it back to the business. And that's another creative way to make money off your carving, is finding different, like maybe even some of those woodworking podcasts, which I could also send you some of those. You probably already have them all. But reaching out to those people to see if you could sponsor their podcast, and you make little figurines or you make spoons. There's just, the longer that I'm managing and running this business, the more I realize there's infinite ways to make money off of it. And it's just about getting really creative and knowing that maybe you can weave other aspects of your life into this craft and make money off of it. Do any of you guys have YouTube channels? Yeah. I really want to get into that. It's so much work editing. That's like the only reason I haven't gotten into it yet. It seems like a lot of work, but I think that's a great portal just like this for starting to get your work out there. Tom asked me to talk a little bit about just like kind of cohesiveness, like do you guys have Instagram? Do some of you have Instagram? Just give me like a thumbs up. Yes. Cool. I would love to find you on there. I think it's really, really important, just from a branding perspective, to keep your photos very cohesive with one another. I found that was taking a lot of my freaking energy when I really had some spoons that needed to get carved. So what I did is I went on Etsy and I purchased a filter for my photos. So I could take a pretty like janky photo of some finished spoons or a product I'm hoping sells and throw this filter through Lightroom app. It's the Lightroom app. It's free on your phone. And that way you can just throw a filter onto every picture you take and you don't have to take 20 minutes trying to get a perfect photo. But Lightroom is awesome. Go onto Etsy, grab a filter, just type in, I think it's just Lightroom filter or something like that. And I can send you a direct link if you'd like. I'm just gonna take a peek at my notes, my chicken scratch. Yeah, I mean, this kind of goes back to just the storytelling aspect of business, but I think it's just so important when you are selling a product, if you're wanting to monetize that, is understanding that your story really, really matters. And I think the more you lean into that and share that, whether it's through even process videos of what you're making. I mean, I'm obsessed with that. Like anytime someone is showing, like I'm really obsessed with pottery right now. So I'm watching all these like pottery accounts and I just like, anytime I see the process, I get so sucked into it. But sharing more of what your process looks like, people want to know what that looks like. Also using just like appropriate hashtags on your pictures. I actually have a really good set of them, which I'd also love to send to you. I'll give you my contact info so you could email me after this. But yeah, hashtags to plug into every woodworking picture you have, process picture. And another thing that's really grown our Instagram following, we're not massive by any means. Tom's page is a really good example of a great one. But creative collaborations with other makers has been really profoundly great for our business. I've worked with potters who I was like, ooh, that's beautiful. I think that would look really neat, like a ceramic dish with one of my wooden spoons. And then we do like giveaways together and kind of sharing audiences with one another. So reaching out to other makers that you're inspired by, sharing other makers' work. I just think there's something energetically really positive about like exactly what Tom is doing, what Blake's doing, just sharing other people's art. So the more you do that, the more that's going to happen to you, I have found. It's just, I don't know, it's a good give and take. Let me see what else I have on here. What else? PDFs. Again, money. It sounds like so many of you want to talk about money, which is awesome. I get it. As creatives, I mean, there's kind of that like starving artist myth. It is a myth. It is not true. You can be financially abundant and be an artist and make things. I do think though, you really have to get creative, and like the PDF that I made or had made for us that is now completely passive income. It's $10 for people to get a tutorial on how to carve a wooden spoon, link to finish. And it just sits there and people are just buying it all day not all day, I wish 24 hours a day. We'll get there. But yeah, it's just so cool to have like these different portals for income to come through at any point. But I'd like to open it up for some questions as far as monetizing your work goes, anything finance related. Actually, you can ask me anything, whatever, before it. Anybody?
Hey, Dani, do you have a specific page that you feel like you make more money on? I know a lot of people use like Etsy. Some people use eBay. I mean, there's a lot of different places where you can throw stuff out there. But are there any that's more profitable for you than others?
Yeah, so currently it's between our website, our direct website, and which is honeysuckleandmud.com, and also our Etsy page, which surprisingly blew up. I was like writing Etsy off. I was like, screw Etsy, it is nothing. But then once we hit an algorithm, so basically we sold a handful of the spoon carving kits through Etsy, and then it just like lifted us higher. So like if you type in spoon carving on Etsy, I'm pretty sure our page is one of the first ones to pop up. So now Etsy is one of our biggest portals for income as far as products go, which is unbelievably cool. And I feel bad for all this shit I was talking about Etsy. for a while, because it's actually great and they have great marketing. If you just are okay with the fact that, yeah, they do take a fairly decent chunk, just be okay with that, because they're marketing you like crazy. And if you, on your Etsy, this has been really good, have a direct link to your website on there as well, like up in your little shop, the shop top, the thing on whatever, you can do an announcement to your shoppers, and you can direct them back to your Instagram. You can direct them back to a newsletter. Newsletter is huge. I'm really trying to focus on that in 2020, is building up our direct contact, which is the newsletter. So yeah, starting up a newsletter, maybe you do some kind of carving tips, carving on Tuesday. I don't know what you do, but doing a newsletter once a week, bi-weekly, once a month, something consistent for your customers. But yeah, definitely Etsy.
Hey, Dani, you've mentioned your website a few times. Did you get it designed, or did you do it on like Squarespace or something like that?
Squarespace all the way for life. I might end up hiring someone to design a website someday, but I just think the templates are so user-friendly. They're so beautiful. It's drag and drop. I have people in my life who are not tech savvy at all, but can figure out Squarespace. So yeah, and I'm also helping people with that as well. If you're needing help getting a Squarespace set up, I can do some consulting with you on that. Again, I'll give you my contact info. But I mean, Squarespace, I think, is the best as far as a web hosting platform that's simple and beautiful. And you can just link your Instagram there. It can be you'll notice if you go to our site, it's very, very simple, but it's good. It keeps people. So anyone have any other questions for?
Hey Dani, do you have like a formula or something to price up your items, or?
Oh, that's such a great question, and that was like one of my first questions when I started selling my stuff. And I've kind of come to this place, and I'm trying not to be too woo-woo with you guys, but I think the way we price our work is directly related to just how worthy we feel. Like if you make something and you put your energy into something and you're like, this is fucking worth $48. It's a spoon and it's worth $48. Someone will buy your spoon for $48. And it's about finding your ideal customer. So figure out, who do you want to sell to? And that's, my prices have grown as my self-worth has grown, basically, in business. And at first I was selling my spoons like these, I mean, not beautiful. They were just beginner, but they took me like 5 hours to carve a spoon in the beginning, and I was selling it for like $12. And I'm like, slave labor, this is not okay. But now I have customers that I know want my more boutique style of carving. And when I was looking for places to sell my work, it didn't make sense for me to go to a kitchenware shop or to some place that gets their spoons in bulk for 3 cents a piece or whatever. It's like, those aren't my customers. Mine are more a boutique customer. So figuring out what you want that customer to look like, and then pricing truly how you feel, like what you think that piece is worthy of.
Okay.
Hope that answers it.
Dani, can you talk a little bit more about your podcast? What do you usually do as far as conversations on there? How often do you do it? That kind of thing.
Yeah, so like I said, the podcast is not woodworking related. However, I do talk about creative living, which is a big part of our business. And it's just teaching people how to live a life that is more reflective of their truest self. So on the podcast, we do talk a lot about just trauma, childhood trauma, but also people living really unique creative lifestyles, from living in like tiny homes to having a creative business like you guys, just kind of across the board. But creative living, I know that seems broad and kind of a interesting word, but it's just people living a life that is kind of unconventional and very much their own. So that's a big topic on the podcast, but also harder conversations. That's one of my favorite things. And so it's like, let's start a podcast about that. And so, yeah, we just talk about the things too that are often not discussed, maybe a little uncomfortable. little like, oh, why? Like, that's what we do.
So how can people find that? Like if they want to go out and find your podcast?
The podcast is called Mudlark, one word, Mudlark. It's available wherever you like to listen to podcasts, Spotify, iTunes, what have you. And I also, another thing with the podcast, it's just normal everyday people. It's not, I'm not talking to, that is my focus. I want to talk to people like you, people like me, people that do have a really profound story to tell. And yeah, if you want to come on the podcast, reach out to me. I'd love to talk to you. I wanted to, is it okay if I chat about finding places for selling your work? Something just popped into my head that I spaced because I am a space cadet.
You got the floor.
But so what I would really recommend doing when you're looking for a place to potentially sell, whether that's consignment or a wholesale account, only sell to places that make you feel good. So I told the guys before you all popped in here that I'm sitting in a coffee shop right now, which was the first place that I started selling my spoons ever. I started making coffee scoops, and it was just a place I frequented. It felt really good. And that kind of opened my eyes to like, oh yeah, we get to decide where we sell our work. And the places that carry our work, they can be, I mean, if you're making little Santa danglies, what was that, an ornament that you make, Tom? You could sell that at such a unique place. You could sell that at a coffee shop. You could sell that at the local farmer's market. You could sell that. I mean, there's just so many places that would be honored to carry your work, but don't sell at places that suck or that you don't love. You need to feel really good about the places you sell your work because your work matters. Any other questions? You're like, show me some spoons. I wish I would have brought some. Yeah, could anyone talk about, I'd love to hear someone who is selling their work like online. Are any of you selling your work? You're like, no, that's why we're here, lady. We don't know how to. Yeah, okay.
Is Sarah on here? Sarah sells golf balls and stuff online, doesn't she, Blake?
Golf balls?
Carved.
She does, yeah. So she does carved golf balls.
Cool.
If we can get her on, she's probably working on something now. But yeah, she's done a lot of that. When she does direct advertising just through Instagram and Facebook. So,
Okay.
That's what we see mostly of. There she is. Hey, Sarah.
Hi.
Sorry. I heard the back end of the question, but what was the question?
Oh,
was it on
anyone?
selling?
Yeah, I was just curious who is selling work online and finding success in that, and what portal you were working through, whether it was Etsy or Instagram.
So I have an Etsy page, and it sells fine. The only thing that I don't particularly like about like Etsy and Instagram is the fact that you pay the fee for any sales.
Yeah.
And so, and I understand that, but it was just one thing that I was kind of struggling with. So I started just saying like for sale on an Instagram post.
Oh, yeah.
Instagram post, say for sale, I'd list the price, like Venmo or PayPal, comment and send me a DM and it's yours type of a thing. And they usually sell pretty fast. I've just been doing little golf balls recently. But that's kind of like the only platform that I've had. I just am so new to it that I don't even know where to go, and I wasn't expecting things to sell. So it's all kind of been new to me.
You're like, whoa, you actually want this? That's amazing.
Yeah. Money for that.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. I mean, they do I haven't explored this. I'd like to, but they do like the Instagram, like you can actually sell on Instagram. I've been kind of interested in looking into that, but again, you have to pay like a monthly fee through Shopify. And I'm like, monthly fees just add up so quickly. And I'm like, I'm already paying for so many weird little things. I can't find it in me to pay for it. Yeah. Is anybody making their living solely off their creative work? Crickets. You are, Dave.
Yeah, you
Kinda.
gotta. Well, I found out you gotta have money in the bank to fall back on.
Yeah.
If you don't, it's, you're gonna be without a house and you're gonna go hungry. But yeah, I've found that for me, it's been more lucrative to sell through classes, not my product, but my knowledge.
Yeah.
And trying to share that. And I've thought about Etsy. I've thought about so many of these other venues. Recently, I've had a website up until about maybe about 4 months ago. It was about 6 months ago. It came time to pay for another yearly subscription. And I thought, I'm not using this. This is crazy.
Right.
And now I listen to you and I'm thinking, maybe I should have kept it. And I mean, I'm not into technology. Every time, it took me 5 minutes to log on to this stupid Zoom thing. And, but I mean, I'm trying to use that to teach.
Right.
And I found another wood carver who was willing to help me with that. And he's kind of my techno guy, but I wouldn't know how to do this by myself. I'd get everything screwed up.
Right.
So I kind of shied away from anything. I mean, even trying to set up an Etsy account or trying to put a video on YouTube, I found out, well, if you're going to go on YouTube, you got to have a YouTube account and you got to have a Gmail. And it's like, well, wait a minute. I got a smartphone 8 years ago, and I had to set up a Gmail account when I got my smartphone. So I've got one, but I don't remember what it was because I don't use it. And this is just stuff I go up against every time I try to do anything that's involving
Right.
technology.
I
So
think
I'm sitting here taking all kinds of notes as you're talking because I want to learn about it.
Yeah. And I think even things like, have you heard of Skillshare? Skillshare is an online platform that you can take classes, even in building a Squarespace site, or like a website, which I should be getting paid by Squarespace with how much I talk about them. In fact, I'll probably reach out to them after this call and be like, you guys need to be giving me some money. But there's so many ways to learn how, and I know it's hard. I have learning curves and I grew up with a computer. Like I have, when it comes to technology, I struggle too, but anytime you can delegate or do trade work or have someone else help you with it, like I've been trying to delegate more and more. I'm like, there is always someone who can do this better than me, and it's the things that I just really don't like doing or really struggle with. I've been trying to outsource that. And do you teach classes?
Yeah, and until the pandemic hit, I've always been old school, buy a plane ticket, fly across the country, have somebody set up a class, and you get 10 people in a given geographical location, but 3/4 of what you make, 2/3 of what you make goes to your plane ticket and your hotel room and your meals. So you come home with, a
Experiences.
little bit of, a lot of experience and a little bit of change.
Right.
The good thing about Zoom, there's no travel expenses. You're not limited to 10 people because you're not carving on their piece with them. They're doing their own thing. There are just a lot of advantages from my perspective, and I think from a student's perspective, because I can charge about half of what I would typically charge for a seminar.
Right.
So that it's win in a lot of respects, but I don't have that physical contact with the student, and I really miss that.
Me too. that's like that's the meat for me, is teaching and being in that workshop environment, connecting with people, and just seeing them light up when they create something beautiful. You know, it's the best. I do think it's very important to have a spot that people know they can find you. So a website, something that they can always come back to you and your story. Otherwise, you have that one interaction at a workshop, and how are they ever going to find you again? You know, it's like, there's just something to keep that customer in that way. I think it's so vital. Almost everyone that purchases from us once comes back. And I think it's because we have that, like, we really value that, staying connected, whether that is through our newsletter or just having a website where we're constantly keeping it fresh and bringing inspiration. But yeah, I think you have the strength in that you are a teacher and that you have that in-person connection, but you would really benefit from having a space that people come back to, but you have to talk about it. You know, you have to talk about the website and be like, oh, I post a little thing here once a week. Like, just grab them. And I just think it's important. Take it or leave it, but I think it is important.
Hey, I have a question. I mean, it's kind of a put it out there to everybody, and I don't know if it's feasible or what, but as we've started this international associations, not we, they, Tom and Blake. So as this has grown, would it not be possible for a universal website, anything wood carving, where multiple carvers could post their products on the site? So it, you know, really, instead of, you know, everybody having an individual website, you could have a collaborative wood carving sale website where if you want to post things for sale, you could contribute, you know, a small amount to whatever the fees are to maintain the website, and then be able to sell your whatever spoons, you know, the kuksas, the carvings, anything like that. Would that be something that could be doable, to have a collaborative wood carving website and do?
I mean, that comes down to just creating a whole business where you'd be like, I think because there'd be so many different vendors, it could be tricky for payout. That's the only thing that comes to mind. That's why I think Etsy is so great, because that's kind of what that is. I mean, yeah, they are taking a cut, but it's like they're going to be putting the money straight into your bank account. But I mean, if you were to sell to a store and you sell them wholesale, and then they are just selling your work for a higher price, I mean, that's what we've done. We've done quite a bit of that, which I don't know how I feel about it. I think it's good for getting your name out there and people coming back to your website directly. But my husband and I were just talking about it this morning, and I don't like doing that as much anymore. Selling my work for wholesale, it's just like kind of painful. It's like, oh my gosh, 50% off. But it's like a bigger amount of money up front, but then it's also like that I could just sell that directly from myself and make the full amount. Right. Does anyone else have questions or input? Anything you want to know?
Yeah, Dani, I got a question. Can you talk a little more about creating the, I guess you had the word, I lost the word, the aesthetic behind your thing? Because I'm like looking at your website and I'm looking at your Instagram, and like you were saying earlier, there's a very cohesive quality to it, but finding that niche, that look that you're going for, that I think has a lot to do with why people gravitate towards you and that vibe you give off. Like, how do you create that? How do you start that?
Yeah, well, thank you. That's a huge, that's one of my favorite things to talk about, just because it's so fun. I love making things cohesive and reflective of who I am. So I think, I mean, from like a branding term, it's kind of just like writing out. I'm a list person. I'll like write out when I'm creating a business. I've created multiple businesses. this was by far the most fun. But it's like, how do I want people to feel? And so I'll write out just kind of like, almost like a mood board. You know, how do I want people to feel? I want people to feel invited, inspired, curious. And so the images that I share are going to evoke those emotions, hopefully. So I really think about that. I think about the photos that I share. I think about just like, even like process photos. Like I shared a process photo of a bowl carved out, just like while it was still in the bowl form and the spoon. It just like, I knew that was going to evoke curiosity. So I think getting really clear on what you want your customers to feel when they visit you, that will start to help you gain clarity on how you're going to construct this brand. I think figuring out like colors that really go together. I mean, you could even go onto Pinterest and type up like different mood boards and see different like colors that just look so beautiful. And you probably see there's lots of like orange and brown and like wood and like floral too. I have lots of like botanicals because those are like, that's how my house looks. Like our brand looks like my house. It's very reflective of my own personal aesthetic. So I think the more you're like, I don't want my brand to look like my house. Like, no one wants that. Sorry. But I think just like, yeah, just making it look as much like you as possible. I know that sounds kind of woo-woo. It's hard for me to articulate. It's so much easier. I work one-on-one with people and we sit down and I can get such a good feel for what they're trying to create. But yeah, I think, what colors do you love? You have to stick to a color palette. And I mean, I swear up and down on getting a filter for your images, a filter that just, I mean, you can literally plug in the filter onto the Lightroom app, and it's kind of confusing, but you will get it. There's step-by-steps when you order one through Etsy. That has been such a lifesaver for me. Every single picture is cohesive. Every single image is reflective of our brand. So I hope that helps. Ask me anything else if I can articulate that better.
Do you find that sort of, sorry, just real quick to follow up. Do you find that as an aesthetic to quality, it's specific to location? So like you're in Montana, Oregon, there's a rustic culture up there, I imagine. There's more of an artisan culture. I'm in Central Florida and it's like short of the beach. And then when I travel outside of Florida, I notice, South Carolina, North Carolina, Montana, Oregon, there seems to be more of a rustic quality that identifies with wood carving compared to some other places. Have you noticed anything like that?
Yeah, I think that is so, that's really neat that you've seen that. And I absolutely think that's true. I mean, I'm an Oregon girl for life, and I feel like our brand really reflects Oregon, Montana, my roots. And I think, again, back to your story matters. Did you grow up in Florida?
Yeah, for the most part.
Okay, palm trees. I don't know. I mean, just think of like, where did you spend a lot of your time? Where did you spend a lot of your time as a kid? What did you love doing as a kid? All these things that kind of bring us back to the root of who we are, I think can really be a very powerful brand message. And I always come back to that. So I think there's colors you could pluck from your environment. But really it's like what catches your eye. Maybe you don't feel connected. I mean, it sounds like you feel connected to Florida. You live there still. But even if you're really drawn to the desert of Arizona, maybe there's a reason, and maybe that could really benefit your brand, to lean into that a little more.
I have a question. Yeah, I have a question. I'm going to kind of shift gears. In terms of the accounting and financial aspects of online sales, you have multiple platforms that you sell on. Is there a common program or application that you use to handle your financial stuff?
Yes. absolutely. So these people should also be paying me because I talk about them a lot. That's on me though for not reaching out and asking. So I use FreshBooks. FreshBooks is everything. So again, I think I like it because it's so aesthetically pleasing. But yeah, so I have it so all of my income that comes through my business account goes straight there. So I basically have to just itemize things once they're in my FreshBooks account to kind of put them where they need to go. But all of my transactions are connected to FreshBooks. So freshbooks.com, I think I pay somewhere around 20 something a month. And you can actually make it look exactly like your brand. So I like plug in all my brand colors. So I get on there and I'm actually really excited to use it. And this is coming from someone who's avoided accounting like the actual plague for my whole 30 years of living. But now I actually really enjoy doing my accounting, and it's just so beautiful. And you can see like trends of like what you're selling, a lot of what financial portals are bringing in the most income. And yeah, it's great.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
How do you handle sales tax, or do you not worry about that?
What is that? I'm just kidding. So we just pay our taxes, so quarterly taxes, and through FreshBooks, you can see exactly how much you should be paying for your taxes, quarterly, yearly, whatever. It can break it down for you. And then like things like Etsy, people pay the extra tax through there. Like they do sales tax through Etsy. We don't have the sales tax like through our website, but it's like plugged into some of those portals that the people just end up paying a little bit more. And you can see it on Etsy for sure how much people are paying. Does that make sense? Any other questions? But yeah, if you do have other questions that pop into your mind, please feel free to email me. My email is hello@daniboltz.com. It's hello@daniboltz, DANIBOLTZ.com. And ask any questions. I do some coaching calls. I'm now offering coaching calls over the phone, over this handy little Zoom. And if you have any more questions specific to your business, branding wise, monetizing, how to grab your customers, I'd love to talk with you and support you. It's so fun. I think that's the thing that people get freaked out by in business. They're like, oh, it's so daunting. Like, just have fun with it. Like, you're a creative person, and you're making beautiful work that is going to speak to people. And it's just about figuring out how to get your message across, and just take your time. It will evolve. My business, if you would have seen it 3.5 years ago to what it is now, it's an evolution. You just have to like be okay with that.
All right. Any other questions for Dani? All right, Dani. Well, thank you for joining us today. Hopefully you'll come back and visit us again. We meet every week. Try to do it around the same time. So hopefully you can come back and meet with us.
I would love that.
Yeah, that'd be great. Just a couple of points of business here for us. Don't forget that we have a Teespring account where we're selling merchandise with our logo on it. Mr. Joseph Farnsworth has his blue shirt on that he won in the giveaway. Say hello, Joseph. So we did a giveaway to try to increase traffic on our site and get people to join us. Joseph won that T-shirt, so we got it sent out to him last week, and it looks like he's already gotten it, so that's great. But check out our Teespring account. You can find it there at International Association of Woodcarvers. We've got T-shirts, stickers, leggings, all kinds of good stuff. So go out and check that out. We'll use the money that we may earn, which isn't very much, to do additional giveaways in the future. We also plan on getting some stickers that we can send out to the people that join us on a regular basis. So stay tuned for all of that. Next week, which I think will be, the 18th, we're going to have a special guest from New Zealand. I don't know if any of you all know Sean Simon. I think it's the way you pronounce his name. He's been on our meetings in the past. He was quarantined up in Canada for a period of time due to COVID-19. They finally released him to go back home, and he's back in New Zealand now and settled in. So we've lined him up to come and join us. But next week's meeting is going to be at 4 o'clock instead of 3 o'clock. And hopefully this will be the only time that we have to bump it up. Because of the time difference, it's going to be, if we were to do it at 3, it would be 7 in the morning for him. So we're going to try to bump it up to 4 so he gets a little bit more sleep, I guess. It'll be 8 o'clock his time. So 4 p.m. next week. We'll make sure we advertise that so that everybody's in the loop. And then we'll go back to 3 o'clock after that. So check out Sean. He has a website. It's simonwoodcarving.com. He does Pokemon carvings. On his Instagram page, he has 23.7 thousand followers. So he's got quite a following on Instagram. And I think that is about it. So again, Dani, thank you. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for sharing with us. You'll probably be getting a lot of Instagram requests after this, people wanting to follow you. So thank you for joining us. And again, we'll post the videos out on Facebook and YouTube immediately following this meeting. And again, join us next week. And again, we'll have Sean Simon next week. Thank you all.
Thanks.